Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for our weekly recap series, where we'll be looking at teases, pre-order announcements, releases for the week, anything newsworthy in the 6-scale world that might not have merited its own video. And this week I do have to start by saying unfortunately, or maybe fortunately depending on how you see it, I was super busy at work with a ton of projects and deadlines, so I wasn't able to do some of the videos that I had in mind. But there are some nice newsworthy items to discuss today, and again, it feels like everything is marching towards next week's start of convention season, and hopefully we'll start seeing some big announcements. And as I was putting my notes together, I will say the general theme for today is going to be budget limitations. But before starting and getting into things for the week, I have to go into my mandatory disclaimer. I'm not affiliated with any of these companies, I'm not affiliated with any resellers either, and I'm not using this as a sales post, which is why I don't post links for purchasing these. Purpose of these videos is just for me to discuss interesting news posted essentially on social media that impact 6-scale figure collecting, and in particular, figures that I find interesting or products I'm tempted to get from my own collection if budget weren't an issue. And I do think once pictures go public for announcement, it's pretty much up for discussion. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into things and start with teases. And the first one is going to be a little departure from figure talk, but it's figure adjacent. And I'll link it together at the end, I promise. But basically, we have gotten our first official look at Hugh Jackman in Deadpool 3, sporting what has to be the most comic-accurate version to date of his X-Men uniform with the yellow and blue. And sure, you also get a look at the new Deadpool suit, which also looks great, but the highlight here is definitely having that first look at Wolverine. And the suit just looks amazing. Granted, it's not an exact replica from the comic. For example, he's got covered arms, but just everything else here, it's great to see Marvel be so faithful in recreating these suits for us. And he even has a nice X logo on the belt. Of course, we're not seeing, but the mask has been teased as well. So we're not seeing it yet, but I think it'll be in the movie, so it'll be nice to see that. Now, having a good number of the previously released Hot Toys Wolverine figures, my current favorite is the Days of Future Past one. But, and this is where we link back to 6-scale figures, I would be willing to put money on the fact that Hot Toys will be giving us this figure. And yeah, I'll be day one pre-ordering him, even without seeing the movie. This is one of the moments where a figure I feel like transcends the property, and if done well, I would love to have a comic-accurate MCU Wolverine in the collection, regardless of how the movie turns out. And yeah, Deadpool looks good too, plus with the rumored cameos in the movie, could we see Hot Toys go deep in the line as well? I guess we'll have to wait and see, and obviously the strikes going on are going to put a wrinkle on a lot of projects, so we'll have to see how that impacts Hot Toys as well. Next tease comes to us from X06, and it's just one shot of their upcoming Admiral Jean-Luc Picard from Season 3 of the Picard show on Paramount+, which, if you haven't watched it, was really great TV. So I'm excited to see these released. Now, these are tentatively scheduled to start going on pre-order this summer, along with the long-awaited Wrath of Khan line. And if you haven't seen it, X06 did post a Wrath of Khan teaser video that just really makes it look like this is going to be a can't-miss series from them. And a little side note, the video was apparently put together by Mr. 6-Scale Mafia himself, so definite props to him for such a great tease. Now, moving on to announcements, we have to kick things off with Hot Toys, and they announced 2 figures from the upcoming Spider-Man 2 video game. Now, interestingly enough, these figures are both Hot Toys exclusives and limited quantities, and they're still not up for pre-order on Sideshow, but we'll go more in depth in that with each figure. Now, I didn't do a dedicated video because 1, I was busy, and 2, I'm only slightly tempted by one of the releases. Not that they're not good, but, and maybe this is getting a little repetitive, I just can't buy everything. I'd love to, but have to stick to my budget, and I already pick up a lot as it is. So first up, we have Peter Parker in his 2.0 version advanced suit. And I do think it looks great, although I was never a fan of the big white spider on his chest, although it does distinguish this version from all the other Spideys we've gotten, the MCU Spideys and so on. So I can't fault the designers for trying to make their version stand out a little bit more. But what really does impress me here are 2 things. The first one, the mechanical arms. He's got quad arms in a nice silver finish, but these look massive. I don't know if it's maybe my perception of these, but I feel like compared to the integrated suit or Iron Spider MCU versions, these arms are just that much bigger. And there's a lot of little nice detail work too. For example, I do like that the joints for the mechanical arms also have sharp ends, and I like that the tips have a light blue color. Just makes the arms feel a little different than anything that's come before, and it does make this Spidey seem a little more intense maybe. Second thing I really like here, and it goes hand in hand with the story for the sequel, and that's the web shooter attachment that's releasing black tendrils instead of webs. So clearly this is the start of Peter's interactions with the symbiote leading to Venom. So without the game being released, I'm not sure how this factors in, but I do like the organic form that Hot Toys provided for the shooter, almost looking like the symbiote is starting to spread around Peter's arm. Really nice accessory here. Rest of the figure, I can't really say anything negative, but if you've seen or own any of the Spidey figures, I feel like there's not much more to know. He looks super posable, has really nice accessories, everything we would expect from a Hot Toys Spider-Man. One note, and we'll see that with the second figure as well, Hot Toys finally updated the web accessories and are providing a variety of new web pieces. I appreciate that, given that they've basically been providing the same types to all their Spidey figures releases, so it was time for an update. And look, I feel like I try to be honest with all of you, so my thoughts are, at this point, Spidey's becoming a little bit of the Hot Toys cash cow, which makes sense on multiple levels. Iron Man is basically done. No Way Home was one of the most successful, if not the most successful, post-Endgame MCU properties, and Spidey just sells. But just like with the Clone Troopers, it's becoming a little difficult for me to get hyped about every new Spider-Man announcement. And with my targeted focus on the MCU proper, video game figures just aren't in the cards. Doesn't detract from how good the figure looks, but not something I feel the need to order. So now the details on this guy. Per Hot Toys, this figure is limited to 3,000 worldwide. Now for people who buy from Sideshow, they have announced that they'll be getting 1,000 of these. They also didn't put this figure up for immediate pre-order, instead electing to set up an RSVP link. So if you're interested in buying this, you need to RSVP, and pre-orders are tentatively stated to start on July 21st. So just key dates to keep in mind. Now, the second announcement from Hot Toys and the next Spidey is Miles Morales in his upgraded suit. And while the Peter Parker didn't tempt me, this one I'm really not sure about. And the reason for that is, first of all, I think the suit looks incredible, and I like the red and black color scheme that Miles uses for his suits. It's visually a color combination that carries a lot of flair to it and really stands out and pops. So it's a beautiful looking figure. The second reason I'm interested, it's Miles. And while I would typically say I'm going to wait for the MCU version, first of all, who knows when that's coming, or even if it's coming. Hopefully it is. But this figure looks like it would definitely fit in with an MCU display. I mean, the intricacy of the detailing on the suit's black portions looks like it would go with the Tom Holland Spidey figures, and even reminds me a little of the Black Panther suits. So from a visual standpoint, this figure just fits in so remarkably well with the vision I have for my MCU display collection. As far as accessories, he does feel a little light. He comes with his Venom blast effects, which look good, but again, why wouldn't they? Hot Toys has done a ton of effects like this before with Thor and other figures, so they should be getting these right. And then just like Peter Parker 2.0, he comes with those updated web attachments. Rest of the figure, like I said before, just looks great with the red webbing on the suit and the accents running down his arms, with also the slight red on the boots. But even the rest of the suit isn't just plain black. It's got some variations on the material use and the patterns that help to give the suit a little something extra. And I know sometimes people complain that the MCU suits are a little busy with all the buckles and so on. So I think that's actually what appeals to me here. It's not just a simple suit, although I think it's a more standard release from Hot Toys. Now, Hot Toys also noted this figure is going to be limited at slightly less units than the Peter Parker, coming in at about 2,000 pieces. Now, Sideshow is also doing the RSVP thing here, and for this one, they'll only be getting 500 pieces, so clearly the more limited of the two figures. So I would expect this figure to go quick. For Miles, the pre-order date from Sideshow is Tuesday, July 18th. So on the plus side, there will be a chance to pick up both of these if you want to, or want to try. But I feel like this Miles is going to be tough to get, even if you get the email to pre-order. So I did put my name into the RSVP list for this one, but we'll see what happens. It'll be kind of a game time decision. Now, the next figure is a line I don't typically cover, but the figure just looks too incredible to not discuss. So, while I'm not picking him up, I do have to give props to Mondo for their incredible looking Man-Bat 6-scale figure. Now, first of all, Batman the Animated Series was so good, and I still remember watching as a kid, and I specifically remember this episode, which I think was the first one for the series, where Batman takes on the Man-Bat. And the reason it stuck with me first of all was seeing Batman in action. The way the show was done was just incredible. But there was something almost a little scary about the episode, especially during those transformation scenes where the scientist, and I forget his name, but he starts transforming into the Man-Bat. And I still go back and rewatch some of these episodes, and it's fun to see how super entertaining they were for a kid, but how well they hold up as an adult. Now, Mondo has done a decent job with these, releasing Batman, Joker, Harley, Catwoman, Mr. Freeze. And trust me, I was tempted to pick these up. Really tempted because of how much I love the show. But the theme for the night strikes again, right? Budget. I'm just too heavily invested in other lines, and when my budget did open up, it was a little too late to jump and try to pick these up again. I mean, you can still find Batman for a reasonable price on eBay, but budget's not my friend again. I'm sure, like many of you, I can live like... I'm sure, like many of you, that you're going to pick these up, so I'll live vicariously through your reviews and look forward to seeing pictures of this guy, because he looks incredible. Mondo has done a phenomenal job here with the line, and even the X-Men animated series is great in creating that authentic look from the cartoon, even with the shadows they do on their paint apps. But for Man-Bat, this is a Mondo San Diego Comic-Con online exclusive, so not sure how hard or easy it'll be to get, but the package is pretty impressive. First of all, they're giving us 5 sculpts, 4 different Man-Bat expressions that range from intense and aggressive to almost goofy, and then you have that transformation head that would pair with a torn shirt that can be put on the figure. I like the options that are being provided here, and then of course the wingspan on the guy at almost 3 feet. He's going to be enormous standing next to Batman. I really have to say I'm impressed. I don't know if these are good quality or not, having not picked any of these up, but visually I really like this, and if I were collecting the line, I'd be seriously ready to pick this guy up. So again, nice to see some really great 6-scale figures coming to us from other licenses. And honestly, with everything going on in DC, would we ever see a live-action Man-Bat? Who knows? So now we'll move on to actual releases, and Hot Toys is continuing to push out figures. At this point, it's pretty impressive to see their operations in full force, although I will say I am glad I'm not a die-hard Star Wars collector, because this week, a little rough on the wallet for you collectors. Now, first up, they released 2 versions of Cad Bane from Book of Boba Fett, and I just have to say he looks amazing. I thought he looked incredible in the show, and I thought the pre-order pics looked great, and I'm happy to see the production piece turn out as good. I really love the Western motif he has going on, and the tons of detail work on his clothing and his face. Also looks like the figure is nice and posable, so you can get some really nice looks from him. By now, if you've seen any of my videos, you know that while I like Star Wars, it's not a line I'm all in with, and I pick up a select few figures. Currently, I only have Obi-Wan, Reva, and the Grand Inquisitor on order, and I am eyeing that Book of Mando, Luke DX, and the Mace Windu figure as well. While I would love to pick this guy up, budget strikes again. I just couldn't order him, and now he's on waitlist. So will I jump on? Probably not. I think the only advice I can give for this hobby, based on my own experience, don't overextend yourself if you can avoid it. And while I would love to say pick up everything you want, truth is we all have priorities and budgets that we just have to stick with, and this is just a hobby. So for me, even some great figures have to be cut, and that's also part of the fun of collecting and trying to determine which figures will fit in best in your collection. But another great job from Hot Toys. And the last 2 releases are from the Clone Wars series. And the first one is Clone Commander Appo with the Bark Speeder, and I think he's another solid release. Clone Troopers, for me, I just can't do it. When The Force Awakens came out, I basically tried picking up as many of the First Order troopers that were released, and I realized quickly that I couldn't keep up. So I've stayed away, but there is a lot to distinguish this figure from your more standard troopers. I like the blue paint on the armor that also shows some wear and tear, but the highlight here has to be that speeder. Now, Hot Toys has been killing it on the smaller vehicles, and this one is no exception with the great detail work and presence. I think it would go nicely if you have any of the other speeders, like the Return of the Jedi versions, the Mando ones that they've released. So overall, nice job. And the second release late in the week was the Heavy Trooper with the Bark Speeder and sidecar. So a slightly different looking trooper, but the appealing part again of this set is the vehicle. This time it's that same Bark Speeder we're getting with Appo, just with a sidecar. Now look, I'm not picking these up at all, so I don't really have any skin in the game. It looks okay. I just think the sidecar in general looks a little wacky, and the little arm that pivots around to allow the sidecar to rotate, the engineer in me questions if that arm could handle the stresses during a high-speed chase. So that's a little aside, but I definitely think the Commander Appo is my favorite of the 2 releases, but both very solid packages. Like I said, I'm glad I'm not a Star Wars collector, because I feel like the last few weeks Hot Toys has just been cranking out releases and my wallet would be suffering a little bit. So for you Star Wars collectors out there, best of luck trying to keep up. And that's it for the week. Now, next week should be interesting because Sideshow is having their Sideshow Con, so I'm anticipating, or at least hoping, that Hot Toys is going to have some announcements there. And I think at SDCC, X06 and 30 are going to be displaying pieces, so I'm curious to see what surprises are in store for us from all the Trek shows. And from 30, I'm hoping to see more Stranger Things figures and maybe a new Rambo. So next week should be exciting. So that's a wrap. And as always, thanks for watching and bearing with me for a little bit. And if you are enjoying the content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.